Hey everybody, my name is John Lynch and I am doing 365 days of alternate day fasting. You're not going to believe it. I find it difficult to believe as well, but we are at day 140. So it's been about 2 weeks since my last video, which is a little longer than I'd like these to be coming out, but it's been a busy time for me, lots of work and stuff, but my fasting is still going pretty strong. I'm still experimenting and it's moving along and I have some cool stuff to chat about. So over these last 2 weeks, my biggest experiment has been 2-day fasts. I've done this twice now in the last 2 weeks. Usually when I'm doing a fast, I have 1 day of fasting followed by 1 day of eating. And so these have been 2 days of fasting followed by 1 day of eating. Since I've made my eating normal on my eating days, where I'm like not following any little rules and not necessarily cutting out at the end of the day, I know that if I want to kind of accelerate my fasting that I have to add fasting time. So I just have that in the back of my mind. And what's happened is twice now, I get to the end of my normal fasting day and I think to myself, you feel pretty good, you know, like maybe do this tomorrow as well. See how you feel. And so then the next day comes along and I feel pretty good. And I think, all right, let's continue. So I've done that twice. And both days that I did this, what I found really interesting was I had a very peaceful energy. And I was still able to do stuff. I didn't feel like super tired or anything. My energy was quite good. It was peaceful. I don't know how else to describe it. So that's been really interesting. I like that. A very weird thing that happens that I hadn't noticed, but that the 2-day fast really brought out for me is, I don't know if you've experienced this, but on my eating after a fast, I can get a little bit of soreness in my mouth when I first eat. I really noticed this at the end of my first 2-day fast. So I got up, I dropped my son off at school, came back, cooked some breakfast, and as I was eating it, really quickly after eating, I got quite a lot of pain in the roof of my mouth, at the back of my mouth. And I thought to myself, oh yeah, I have had this before. Now, when I'm doing normal fasts, like a 1-day fast, I find I get it a little bit, like just a kind of a slight ache. Now, this was a much stronger pain, strong enough that when I got to the end of my second 2-day fast, I wanted to not have it. And so I amended my eating on that day. So first thing I did is I ate a bit of maybe a quarter of a banana, and then I had my shower, and then I came back and ate the rest of the banana. Still, when I had my breakfast, I did get some pain. It wasn't as much as the first time, but it's something that I'm definitely going to be aware of each time I do this. And I don't know what causes it. I don't know. It could be something to do with the saliva glands or something having been producing as much through the fasting period, or I don't know. I have no idea whatsoever. It's just a weird thing that I've noticed, and maybe you have as well. Let me know if you have. So here's a weird thing. Despite having 2-day fasts in this last couple weeks, I'm still in a really long weight loss plateau. It's inexplicable to me. I don't really know the reasons. There are a few things that I can think about. Obviously, on my eating days, I've cut out any of these rules that I was using to make sure that I was losing weight. I'm still glad that I did that because it just makes the whole fasting process better for me. But my expectation during the 2-day fast was that I would lose a lot more weight. And here's how it works. I do lose more weight. What happens is that I do the 2-day fast. By the end of my 2-day fast, each time I was at a new weight loss low. But quite quickly, I go up on my eating day. So the next day is an eating day, and all of a sudden by the end of that day, I'm up a lot higher. And I don't know if this has to do with my body absorbing a lot more water, or I don't know, maybe I'm not losing weight, but I feel that I am. Like I feel that I'm losing some inches a little bit, and I feel that my body's tighter, but I'm just not going to worry about it. It's a thing to notice. It's really a weird thing. I'm surprised by it. One of the things that happens is I'm a little bit less crazy in trying to get a new weight loss low. I think maybe before, when I was doing the measurements, I was kind of pushing to do late night measurements, so maybe I'd be a little more dehydrated and stuff. And so I'm drinking a lot more water through the evenings. I'm not worried about it. I'm not looking for a new goal. I'm just taking what I get. And I think that's the healthiest place for me to be with this, is just to do the work, do my fasting, do some exercises, all that sort of stuff, try to be healthy and not go crazy over the weight loss result at this point. Another thing that happened over this last 2 weeks is I got myself a new scale. My last scale, I was not sure that it was working perfectly well. I would get some weird results at times. One day I did 2 weight measurements, one after the other, and I had a 9-pound difference, which was the real catalyst. It's time to get a new scale at that point. And my hope was that I was well off of my weighing, and all of a sudden maybe I'd be lower in weight. Now, that didn't turn out to be the case. It was a little higher actually on this new scale, but I think it's going to be more accurate. It's one of the scales where you can get some body measurements for fat and muscle mass and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know how accurate those are, but my hope is that even if they're not quite accurate, that the trend is accurate, so that you can see the fat actually going off you, and you can see the muscle mass building. Despite being in this long weight loss plateau, I am feeling really good. I feel like my clothes are a bit looser. I'm not quite at the point where I've dropped a shirt size, but I see that on the horizon. I can't wait. I've been at a 2 extra large for quite a long time now. And I feel like when I started this process, when I started the fasting project, I was even pushing that a little bit on. And so now I'm well low into that. It hangs loose on me. And I would love to be able to drop down the size, but I'm just not quite there yet. I am taking measurements, and so I think I'm losing some inches. It's not a huge amount, but I see it going down, which is something that I really like to see, especially when I'm not actually losing weight on the scale. Also, just last week, I realized I have a new weight loss goal. And I don't know if you guys have had this before, but my new goal is to be able to dry all my clothes when I do laundry in the dryer. For years now, I've been crazy about drying my shirts and trousers because I didn't want them to shrink at all. And so the thought of being able to just do the laundry, throw it into the dryer, and let it dry as a normal human being is an exciting one for me. So that's a new weight loss goal that I just realized that I had the other day. So one of the things that I've been enjoying over this last couple of weeks is I'm experimenting a lot more about food. So I'm a designer, and so I have a lot of work that I sit in front of a computer to do. And a lot of that work, you have some creative work where you have to really focus your mind on it, but then you also have a lot of time where you're just doing the work. You don't have to really think, you're just plowing ahead and getting things done. And through those periods, I'll listen to a podcast or I'll watch a movie or a show or something. And so I've been watching a lot of cooking shows over this last couple of weeks, which I find really interesting. And I tend to do it much more watching those type of shows on my fasting days than on my eating days. And it's interesting because it doesn't make me want to eat while I'm doing that. It makes me want to have more interesting food on my eating days. And I really am excited about that. I love the thought of getting some of the joy back into eating, some of the excitement into cooking and creating things. I'd like to have a healthier and more fun relationship with food. And I also want to have more fun things for my son to try as well. Like if I can be a better cook, then he has better food, right? So we're having some fun with that. And one of the things that struck me is that, I don't know if you have had this experience, but I've been on a lot of diets in the past. And every time I'm on a diet, I have a bunch of rules that I have to follow regarding food, what I can have, what I cannot have. And not all the diets are the same. A lot of them have quite different rules to follow. And so what I found a few years ago was that I actually had a lot of these ideas about what I should and shouldn't be eating from past diets that were just stuck there. I wasn't following a diet. I was just being controlled by this weird unconscious belief about that specific type of food that I didn't even realize so much. It's a little more complicated because I'm a celiac, so I can't have wheat and I can't have gluten. And so there were a lot of things that I didn't have because of you couldn't get things. But nowadays you can. It's not actually hard to get stuff. And so, for example, a really common thing in cooking is that you are cooking away and then you add some flour to it to thicken a sauce up or thicken some food up, add a different texture to it. And that is something that I never do. I have never done for years and years and years. And it's quite standard. So when I'm watching these shows, I'm seeing people doing this and I'm thinking, is there a way that I can buy stuff to replace that. And it's weird because it's not about the celiac stuff. It's so much about the diet and this low carb thing. Even though I'm not following any low carb stuff through this, I still have this hesitancy of adding a little bit of gluten-free flour into a recipe because I have this old diet guilt. And so I'm quite happy that at day 140 that I'm starting to get some release from these really psychological traumas from the past of diets. So that's a new thing. It's something I'm going to watch and continue with. Yeah, if you have that, or if that relates to you in any way, let me know, because this is something that I don't think a lot of people talk about, but that it really affects us long-term in a daily way. Like, so it happens daily and over years. So I think it's interesting. And I think that getting some relief from that is really healthy, actually, bring some joy back to food. So I'm at the point in my weight loss journey where I feel like I'm a bit further along than I actually am. I feel a bit leaner, I feel a bit stronger. My push-up regime is going really well. I've got to the point where I'm doing, instead of doing sets of 5 or 10, I'm doing sets of 25 through the day, which means that I'm doing more than 100 push-ups every day, which feels pretty good to me. And I feel muscle growing, I feel strong, and I love that feeling. When I'm walking down the street, I walk differently. When I look at myself in the mirror, I can see my clothes are hanging differently. So there are really good things coming, really good things happening. I don't want to, dismiss that at all. But I also realize that although my weight is going slow, my goal now is further than I thought when I started this. I want to become quite lean and healthy, and I want to put on a lot of muscle. I want to do all those things. I never thought that was possible before, and now I do think it's possible, but I also think that most likely it's going to take significantly longer than I initially thought. And that's fine. That's not necessarily a problem. Obviously, I'd love it to go faster, but the strength again of this for me is that it's sustainable. I can see it happening for longer than this year. I don't think that that's going to be the end of it at all. And also, when I'm doing these fasting days now, I realize sometimes I enjoy the fact that it's the fasting day. It was a real trial at the beginning, but now when I'm doing it, I think some days I finish a day off and I was an eating day, and I think to myself, oh God, I feel a bit gross. And then I'm like, I'm glad tomorrow's a fasting day. And then I wake up the next day and through the morning, I'm a bit groggy or something like that from eating so much. Not that I do that every day, but some days. And then I feel leaner and better through the day. And I'm like, wow, this is great on its own, separate from the idea of losing weight. Just having this kind of easing of your body, letting it just kind of relax through the day. Well, I've been chatting for quite a long time, so we're coming to the end of the video. I want to thank everybody for subscribing, everybody for commenting. I've not been great over this last little while in getting back on the comments, but I assure you that I am going to go through everything when I get this time. So you've made it through the end of another video, and I'll see you next time.